Hello, everybody. We are the Geeks and Degenerates. I am Manzo. This is my forever co-host Jum. While he's sipping on, don't know what he's sipping on.
Ah, it's called beef jelly. I'm trying it out.
Okay. Anyway, since the Acolyte is releasing next month when we release this, we shall be talking about a certain trilogy that is just quite divisive. No, we're not talking about the sequels. That is for next year, since it will be 10 years since Force Awakens. Yeah, since they began. But
No,
now,
this is. Oh yes.
sorry, you were gonna say something sad.
No, you overpowered me with your now.
But now, since it is the 25th anniversary for the Phantom Menace, we decided that, and it's the beginning of the Acolyte, we decided to talk about why, at least I and you, like the prequels so much, and maybe why our generation likes it a bit more than the previous generation of Star Wars fans. But what were
Yeah.
you gonna say that was sad with the Force Awakens?
No. I was like, man, like this is one thing I hate about working here. You keep
Um,
reminding me on my
more,
mortality.
yes, that's our job. I'm kidding. No, our job's talk about pop culture, especially Star Wars. But yeah, I think I've mentioned this before in the past when we talked about Star Wars that my first movie was Revenge of the Sith, and I like this era of Star Wars. It's my era. Even though there was a time where I was like, yeah, the Star Wars prequels suck, and then in my mind I was like, no, they don't. What are you saying? You're betraying yourself.
There was a point in my life where I was just like, the prequels, Hayden Christensen.
Yeah,
But I think it was just more of like a crowd mentality thing.
yeah,
I was more of like listening to the older fans than I was to like people my age who grew up with the Clone Wars.
yeah,
Um, yeah. So, but looking back at it, and I did watch it. Like, yes, Attack of the Clones is shit, but there's some pretty cool parts. And what I liked about the prequels is that it was so expansive with its universe.
yeah,
With, uh, sorry to say, with the original trilogy, it did feel like it was a little tunnel vision
mm,
where we gotta be at point A to point B. There's this planet, there's that planet. While with the prequel trilogy, we had X amount of planets, we had a huge world. We saw more of it rather than just a set.
yeah,
Even though, yes, it is CGI a
yeah,
lot of the time, you still got a good picture of like the world that you're stepping into, and it was like hammered in with the Clone Wars series, and I'm like, yeah, I like that, I really do, and I see how wide and how much the Empire had an effect
yeah,
on different worlds,
yeah.
especially with the
I
politics.
Yeah, I do like how it completes a bigger picture. It paints a better, broader picture than that. Yeah, the originals, because in the originals, you're just following this one family through its soap opera, and you're like, that's cool. It's a epic soap opera, but like, I wish I saw more. Here you do see more, and like the caveat is that you have to also watch the Clone Wars to really complete the picture, which I'm not the biggest fan of. Usually, I'm not like with the
Yeah,
MCU. You're like, I don't want to watch like 15 different stuff before I watch the new, I don't know, Captain America 4. Like, that's not
yeah,
fair. Here,
I,
you're
I
like,
agree.
here you're like,
Yeah,
oh, this better developed Anakin, Obi-Wan, Count Dooku, Grievous, even Jar Jar. And you're like, that, yeah, I see the bigger picture of what the prequels are.
yeah, okay. Like one thing I will like point out is that the prequels did a horrible job depicting its villains.
Yeah,
Like Dooku, unless you read between the lines, Dooku was a really good villain. Uh, but sorry, I think I said that sentence wrong. Unless you read between the lines, Dooku is kind of a shit villain, or
okay.
like he's not, you know,
Develop?
that impact.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's not impactful compared to what the Clone Wars did.
yeah,
Here we like even with Tales of the Jedi,
yeah,
you get to know the backstory with Dooku and his like beef with the Jedi Order and why he switched.
yeah,
I was like, oh wow, and how Qui Gon Jinn yeah, you tend to forget that Qui-Gon Jinn's master is Dooku.
Yeah.
But when we got it in Attack of the Clones, we were like, who he? What he do? You know, like,
Right.
and then when we just see like him just get decapitated in 3, I'm like, okay.
I guess
but
that's the end of that.
yeah, but I do like this though, because we get to see where one master learns from the other master, learns from the other master, and learns from the other master.
Yeah.
So we have, I think, almost 5 generations within one saga,
Hmm.
where we have Dooku, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan to Anakin, and then to Ahsoka.
Yeah.
And I guess you could count Luke with Obi-Wan, but like,
That's for the originals. Yeah, they do really fix up the characters, especially Dooku and especially Anakin. Where in the movies you're like, wow, you're just a brooding teenager, and like you always wish like I wish he had more time to develop, and then the Clone Wars gives you a lot of development. That's why I'm so grateful for the Clone Wars, because you finally see the bigger picture. You're like, oh, this is who Anakin is. This is why he is the chosen one, and this is why he ultimately becomes a Sith Lord, Darth Vader. You're like, oh, I see his journey more completely. Whereas in 2, you're like, man, can you just shut the fuck up and just stop whining, please?
yeah, like you gotta give thanks to Dave Filoni here. Like, he really just wanted to give these characters life.
Yeah.
When I have to agree, in the original, sorry, not in the original, in the prequels, they weren't that developed,
Yeah.
like, at all, except for Obi-Wan. Like, Obi-Wan was probably the most developed character there.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, Anakin was kind of until the 3rd movie, where we're like, oh yeah, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
You know, him killing kids and shit. Like, yeah. Sorry.
Master Skywalker, there's too many of them.
What do we do? And you know what's funny? Is that I found out that he was supposed to kidnap them.
What a horrible miscommunication.
Yeah, but then somebody was like, oh yeah, he was supposed to kidnap them, but they resisted. I was like, I don't think they resisted.
Well, maybe that set of kids didn't resist. I don't know about the others. Maybe when they saw what he did to the one kid, they're like, fuck that! No!
Yeah.
But no. But yeah. What we're trying to point out is that Dave Filoni and his vision for Clone Wars is, again, makes it better. Even though, honestly, if it was just the movies, it still has a better vision, a better plan, like beginning to end, than unfortunately what we get in the sequels, where you're like, where the fuck are you going? Like, I think I saw an interview with Adam Driver where he's like, yeah, Adam, like Kylo Ren was supposed to be a Sith Lord until the end, and you're like, oh, so there was no plan. Okay.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah, they were kind of just making it up as it goes, because some director just had to have beef with the first director and just mess up the entire saga.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
And that the original director came back and he's like, what the fuck did you do? And the guy's like, I don't know. It's your problem now.
like he's just trying to put a band-aid on as much as he can, but like there's still leaks, and he's just like,
Yeah.
shit,
shit. I don't like the originals didn't have a plan too, but you're like, yeah, but the originals, they're like, they had no idea what they had on their hand. You're like, I don't know if this is going to work. I really don't.
It was coherent enough because it was under one guy.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't go like, hey, George Lucas, you do this one. Steven, like,
Yeah.
you do the second one. And then they were like, what the fuck, that's not what I was planning. And it was like, well, Steven liked it this way.
Yeah, but with the originals, they did change directors, but it was still on a path. You're like, all right, we're going to end up here. And they're like, all right. With the sequels, you're like, you can do whatever you want. 3 directors, and you're like, what? How does that work? How does that mesh? When one director's like, I think it should be like this. The other one's like, I think the Force Ghost can do Final Fantasy 4 summons too. And you're like, since when? When does that happen? And the original director comes back and he's like, I don't know what you did to my project, but what the fuck? you know. But yeah,
Yeah, it was looking great.
yeah,
Yes, I know we're talking about the sequel trilogies right now, but like, it was looking great.
yeah,
Like, I actually had hope, and I was fine with Ray, you
yeah,
know. But nah, y'all fucked it up with the second movie, and this fucker liked it.
yeah, for a bit, you know. Now I'm just like, what a mess. But yeah, going back to the prequels, I do like its overall setup that's done well with the Clone Wars, and I
Hmm.
do like this big piece of like if you want to know the entire story of why everything's like this. By the time you reach Rogue One or Episode 4, here's an explanation why. It might be a bit overwhelming, but like if you can get through a lot of it, you have a better picture of who everybody is. And like you mentioned Count Dooku not being complete, there's another villain who is not complete until the Clone Wars, and that is Darth
General
Maul.
Grievous.
Or,
Oh,
well, General Grievous kind of the
Era
same.
3.
Grievous is kind of the same throughout. You're like, oh, he's the same guy.
No, he was not.
Well,
He's like,
Tarkos.
you know who he was? He was just this guy who was just like, you know, like he was just coughing and just being like an intimidating droid. I was like, oh, okay, he's cool. You know when I found out Grievous was cool before I watched Clone Wars? Star Wars Lego. When he pops up like all of his arm scenes, like General Kenobi, and you know, like that part was cool, but it was short lived, and he died like a blaster shot to the chest and face. I don't know, just chest. Then
Chest,
his
just
face
chest.
caught on fire.
Yeah, poor guy. But yeah, he's cool. But like Maul,
Eh,
Maul, you're like at episode 1, you're like, by the time you reach his end, you're like, I guess that's the end for that guy. Shit, I liked him.
yeah.
And he comes back in, you're like, holy fuck, you are so fucking cool. Jesus Christ.
I love that though. Like I love what the Sith has done to a single being
Yeah,
and the amount of hell that they put him through, just because of like their ideals. And I'm just like, and like at the end, Darth Maul is not Sith.
yeah,
He's still a bad guy, but he's not Sith anymore.
yeah,
You know, he's doing his own thing, and he's just mad at both orders
yeah,
for fucking him over. And I'm just like, that's cool. And it's stretched. Like they met. Obi-Wan and Darth Maul met at when Obi-Wan was a teenager.
yeah.
I don't know what the lifespan is of like that species, but like it got all the way to when Obi-Wan was like in his 60s. And I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, and by the time he reaches that point, you already know all the stories with like him coming back and him having his brother and him trying to take over Mandalore and him fighting Ahsoka and between that him fighting Darth Sidious with his brother and you're like, that's pretty cool. I don't know why they killed you off in the first place, but I'm glad they brought you back. And like I think Jeremy Johns pointed this out. I think one of the things that is undeniably better in the prequels than in the original trilogy is the lightsaber battles because
Hmm.
we only get a few in the originals. One being Obi-Wan and Darth Vader being like, we're too old for this shit. Second one being Darth Vader being like, I cannot kill this kid. The Emperor wants him. And then number 6 being like, we have feelings for each other now. We're too attached. Not in that way. Well, like Luke not wanting to kill Vader and Vader not wanting to kill Luke because Vader is finally feeling the pull of the light. And you're like, that's cool. But like in
Yeah.
episode 1, you're like, holy fuck. It's Jedi and Sith at their prime, finally. That's why I never got, as a kid, I never got adults being like, oh, episode 1 is so lamer compared to episode 4. But I'm like, but the fight is so cool. It's 2 men and the other guy has like a double lightsaber. What do you mean it's not as good as episode 4? Episode 4 is a duel. It's like a fucking snooze fest. You're like, can you please just disappear, Obi-Wan? Ah, thank God.
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry to say, if it wasn't for the prequel trilogy, the death of Obi-Wan would have not been as impactful.
Yeah.
Like, this is a man who has been through so much shit and is regarded as one of the best Jedis
Yeah.
in the galaxy. And when you see just episode episode 4,
Yeah.
where he dies in the first movie, I was just like, doesn't seem like it. And then you get this corridor scene with Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, Darth Maul, and
Qui-Gon.
Savage Opress.
Oh yeah, Savage. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that's when you're like, that is the best Jedi
Yeah,
in the
right.
universe, in the galaxy. And yeah, we also get this cool fight scene with Qui-Gon Jinn, like again, 2v1. And yeah, I agree. The lightsaber battles are way better in the prequels. Even though people are like, oh, if you look when they swing at each other, they're just trying to hit their feet. I was just like, yeah, no one's trying to kill each other on set, you know?
Right. It all culminates in episode 3 with Obi-Wan and Anakin. Like, people are like, it's too clean. It's like two Jedi Knights at their top form. I was like, isn't that the fucking point? Like, Obi-Wan's
Yeah.
at his best, Anakin's at his best. Obi-Wan's at least trying not to kill Anakin because he's like, maybe he's still good. And Anakin being like, I fucking hate you and the Jedi. And you're like, isn't that the point? That they're two max level? It wouldn't make sense if Obi-Wan just knocks out Anakin in the first go. And you're like, what's the fucking point of you being Vader then? What the fuck?
By the way, oh, like, okay, I get it that we are defending, like, how they do their lightsaber battles, and while we complained about, God, what was it again? Force Awakens lightsaber battle, where clearly that one was, like, horribly choreographed. Here's the thing. The prequel trilogy's choreography was phenomenal. It was theatrical. It wasn't trying to be realistic, but it was great. It was planned very well. While here, they tried to be theatrical and realistic at the same time instead of like just lean towards one or the other.
Yeah.
You know, lessen the guards, maybe. You know, or like if you're gonna go full theatrical like this one, go ham.
Right?
So like that was a problem with Force Awakens where a lot of the times a lot of like stunt people were just waiting on cue, and you can't unsee it once you see it. So for me that's bad choreography.
Yeah.
Well, this one, sure they're twirling their swords around like, you know, like crazy, but they're doing it with purpose.
Yeah.
They're trying to show that these two are very skilled and they're very at their game, and they're also at each other's like, you know, max level. So like, it's has more impact, even though it's realistically not the best way to fight. It still has its own impact. So like,
Yeah.
sorry, that's my gripe with both of those. So,
Yeah, also, like, even though I don't like episode 2, I do love the scene where they fight in the Colosseum, like, multiple Jedi. And that clearly carries on to the Acolyte, where you see multiple Jedi facing against the first set and then being like, what the fuck are you? Where in episode 2, it's like Jedi at their full force. You're like, alright, let's fucking go then.
yeah, and I do love the pit scene where just you see different animals from different universe. That's what I'm talking about. Like,
Yeah.
sure, we get the Rancor and we get like, what do you call the sandworm thing?
The pit? The one that Boba
No.
Fett dies in?
Yeah. That's super
Sarlacc, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Sarlacc. Like, cool. These are monsters of this planet. While this one, the Colosseum brought different animals from different planets, and you just see like hybrid spider tigers.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's cool. You know,
Yeah.
like red rhinos. I was like, that's pretty sick. And yeah, we also get like a pretty strong like female character with Padme here. She could like handle herself very well. And just like his dad, and just like his son, Jango Fett kind of like dies a little anticlimactically.
You're like, it truly is a family curse. Well, Boba Fett's back in a much more boring show, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I know we're kind of going on a tangent with Star Wars Disney Star Wars, the past, I mean. But you're like, well, come on, man, you had so much promise with the movies and shows, but you're clearly fumbling the ball. I think that's the biggest takeaway, is that seeing how much Disney has fumbled Star Wars makes us appreciate George Lucas more. You're like, you know what? I don't agree with most of your decisions sometimes, but you had a clear vision, man. Like, I disagree.
Go on.
I disagree, but it's not like Last Jedi where like again, you're like, where the fuck are you going with this?
Yeah, I agree with that. But sometimes I just I love that George Lucas every time he's on an interview, like because every time he's like, "Oh, can you explain why this is like this?" And he's just like, "Oh, I just felt like it." I'm like, I was like, "What?"
Yeah, same reason he gave Sam Jackson the purple saber. That's not. Yeah, he built lore around it, but like at the time, you're like, I thought lightsabers were supposed to be either blue or green. Why say he's special? It's like,
Yeah.
he just asked for it.
He just
Okay.
asked for it. And then like it just was up to like either the fans or Dave Filoni to be like, "Oh, he uses both dark side and light side."
Yeah.
That's why his is like blue and red combined together. And I was like, cool. Which, not gonna lie, I think if Samuel L. Jackson didn't do that, we would have not gotten like the expansive universe of the lightsabers. Like,
Yeah.
there are different colors and the meanings behind them,
Yeah.
which I really like. So good on you, Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah. And like, I grew up listening to the John Williams score for the prequels. I really like that score. Like,
Yeah.
kind of like his score here better than the sequels, and I can't explain why. There's no like technical reason why I don't like the sequel soundtrack, but I'm just like I can't. Maybe because I grew up on the originals and the prequels. I'm like, yeah, this is my it's like a comfort bed. Well, the new ones, I'm like, yeah, it's not as comfortable as this one.
Yeah.
Uh,
One thing I couldn't like really grasp as well with like older fans. No offense, if you like it, you like it. You know, like this is just me and my own opinion. But holy shit, why is your obsession with stormtroopers? They are not that great. You know, like what? Like, why would you want like a full-on stormtrooper like statue, like a life-size, you know, armor set, when clearly they were the punching bags of the entire universe?
yeah, I had relatives who were like, the reason why I don't like episode 1 is because the droids get beaten by an army of like Jar Jars, and like they hammer that Jar Jar's too silly. I'm like, excuse me, wasn't the Empire beaten by teddy bears? And they're like,
I
yeah,
was gonna
but
say,
yeah, because
yeah,
they're
right.
the underdogs. Like, then Jar Jar's the underdog against the Separatists. What's the difference? What, one's cuter than the other? I get that, but like, your reasoning doesn't make sense. You're like, oh, but he's not the underdog, and you're like, what the fuck is he then?
Oh yeah, like oh they won in a goofy way. I was like, you know, you're comparing that to like Shih Tzu, like bipedal Shih Tzus like fighting space Nazis. You
Yeah.
know that?
With like walking bipedal machines of war. You're like, how the fuck do you beat that? I get the guns have like their own technology, and like, yeah, that makes sense.
They had tanks and they had like fucking monsters. While these like little Wookiee things were like they had spears and yeah, I get it. Oh, they eat the stormtroopers. So fucking wild.
Yeah,
A
but
lot of in the universe eat people.
right? It's not like they're attaching themselves to the face of a stormtrooper while devouring it. They're not fucking xenomorphs. And you're like,
Yeah, they're not pulling like. Yeah, they're not pulling like a Hannibal Lecter thing, just like putting the face on
yeah, right?
while like killing each other. So like, yo, calm down with the stormtrooper shit. Because like once Dave Filoni touched, like especially just Dave Filoni, like once they got to like this the clone troopers, and Dave Filoni like expanded on that universe. Holy shit! You can't look at stormtroopers and be like they're cool.
Right?
I would agree with the Dark Troopers. They're fine, but they're like, compared to like the Stormtroopers. Like if you if you like, I would say, pit maybe 10 Dark Troopers against the top 5 Stormtroopers. Clone Troopers of the Clone Wars. I think the Clone Wars ones would still win.
Yeah. Like, yeah,
Like-
easily.
Yeah, like you got Rex, Wolf, Cody, like Fives, all the rest, like especially just like what was it called again?
The bad
Team 99.
Yeah, Team 99 and the Bad Batch. You're like, I think the
Yeah.
Bad Batch can take out any Empire squad today, and that it's clearly proven in the show. You're like, again, I agree with like people being like, oh, nothing in school is the Stormtroopers. Like, are you fucking kidding me? They're who took out the Jedi again? The Clone
And, like-
Troopers, right?
Yeah. But like the thing is, like okay, maybe some of them don't think they're cool. They're just like, oh, they're a piece of like
Nostalgia.
nostalgia of like But I cannot. This is just my opinion. I cannot find myself putting up a stormtrooper armor set instead of a clone trooper one. Like
Or,
for me, I'm like, if you're gonna go for the coolest and closest thing to a Mandalorian in that universe when they're supposed to be extinct,
yeah.
that's where you go.
Yeah. Man. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, I get why. That's why when it comes to talking about the sequels, I'm always like, it's your opinion. You can like what you like because we've already put up with the older generation and be like, why do you like the prequels? They suck. You're like, I just like it, man. Leave me alone.
Yeah. And now we're the ones who are like, why do you like sequel trilogy?
Yeah. It's this fucking trauma that we keep pushing on. But personally, I'm just like, you know what? You like what you like. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's cool. And I get why, because like when I first saw Force Awakens, I saw like kids saying it for the first time, and I'm like, all right, in 10 years they'll be like, this is what the prequels were to you. I'm like, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
I won't blame you for liking what you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is the start of the bullshit of Star Wars fans hating on one character so much that they get bothered with like Jar Jar's actor and Anakin's actor. Like Anakin's actor doesn't even act anymore. And it's only recently that Ahmed Best came back to Star Wars because all the bullshit he had to put up through with his mental health after the Phantom Menace, and you're like, that fucking sucks. And it carries over to the sequels where they're bullying like Daisy Ridley and Kelly Marie Tran and John Boyega for being in the fucking movie. You're like, calm the fuck down. I don't understand you going out of your way to attack the actor or actress.
Yeah, I don't get why people have that mentality of like as if they're the ones who ruined your movie.
Yeah.
You do know they're just following orders from another person. Like, I'm sorry, I'm still against like throwing hate at somebody. You can have how would I say, constructive criticism about a certain thing, like what we're kind of doing right now.
Yeah.
But don't go out of your way where like you're gonna send these people death threats. Like, yes, don't blame the actors, blame the director, but please do not send
Death threats to anyone.
yeah, like don't send death threats to like the director. Like don't go be like, right, I'm not supposed to send death threats. Yeah, I'm supposed to send death threats to the director. You know, like just don't.
Yeah.
Just say the movie sucks or this. I didn't agree with how the story went. You know, because for sure they'll listen, then they'll learn.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then they're not the best director. You know, so stop throwing or like just being mad
Yeah.
at actors or actresses who are like trying to do their best, and they're kind of like us. They're just doing it for a paycheck as well.
Yeah.
So like, yeah.
Yeah, I also don't like the people who don't react well to change of like, why is there so many women or ethnicities now in Star Wars, or why are there so many non-binary characters in Star Wars? Like, what kind of flat, lame, vanilla universe do you live in where there's only one kind of thing?
Yeah, it's like that is such a stupid. Like, why is there like a different colored human
In a universe,
there's an expansive galaxy?
Yeah.
It's like, really?
It's like, why are the aliens non-binary? It's like, because they don't follow your definition of what life is supposed to be. I don't know, man. And they're aliens. Who knows what they can be in real life?
Yeah, like, come on, man. Like, there's cuttlefish.
Right.
They're male and female at the same time, and they live here.
Right.
But like, it's just weird. Again, it's just odd.
Yeah.
Of like why people would just have like this whole concept of like, no, it should be like this. Like even with I remember hearing people like complain about the first Sith and it being a black woman with dreads. I was just like, so
right. Like who
like,
fucking
that's
cares?
How it starts. That's how it fucking starts.
Yeah. Like I don't know. I know this has gone on beyond the prequels, but can really trace the problems or some of the problems back to that, and you're like, oh, this is where the bullshit starts. Where I'm like, I can't believe there are multiple ethnicities in Star Wars now with like Samuel Jackson or like other aliens. You're like, What do you mean? It's a universe. Calm the fuck down.
Again, I feel like the sequel trilogy might need a prequel trilogy treatment with
Yeah.
the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Just like give them a good show like Rebels, you know, like Rebels or Clone Wars.
I
where-
mean, they do, kind of, with The Mandalorian and the Ahsoka and all that. Yeah, because the goal for The
Is that-
Mandalorian is like to explain the rise of the First Order. I think Ahsoka is kind of that too. Even though their world's a bit more fascinating, you're like, okay, that's weird.
no, but I mean like with like Rey and the rest of the gang
Oh, yeah.
in it as well. Like, you know, like show their journey all throughout, like how much they've learned within the gaps of the movies.
Yeah.
And I think that would have like given us like a little bit of closure to like some bullshit plot
Yeah.
holes that we have with the sequel trilogy. Because I do like Daisy Ridley, I do like John Boyega, and I do like Adam Driver. Oscar Isaac is just a no-brainer.
Yeah, he's pretty a great actor. And you're like, yeah,
Yeah.
I like him here.
All of them are great. It's just the story and how they were directed. Like, I have no beef with Daisy Ridley. I have beef with the character and how it was written. I have no beef with John Boyega, but I do have beef with how his character was.
Mistreated.
Kind of.
Yeah, tossed
Yeah.
to the side. You're like, what the fuck?
And I like Adam Driver, and if I do not like how his character ended up being.
A good guy?
I don't mind him being a good guy. It's just how it was like dealt with. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I wasn't a fan of how it just where he came from point A to point B.
Yeah.
I feel like there should have been more drive, no pun intended, or should have been more like explanation to why he switched.
Yeah.
Kind of like again with Anakin to Darth Vader.
Yeah.
It was explained in the Clone Wars. I was like, there we go.
Yeah. Also, before I know we're going on a bit too long, but like the other complaint I don't agree about the prequels is that there's no one villain, unlike the originals with Vader. And I'm like, what do you mean? We have Sidious. Well, yeah. What do you mean? He is pulling the strings. Aren't you paying attention? They're like, yeah, but he's the bad guy in the originals. I'm like, yeah. So it connects well.
Okay, to anyone who has not, or who's a little bit blindsided by it,
Yeah.
like, I don't know if you noticed that Sidious is playing chess with himself
Yeah.
all throughout the entire prequel trilogy. He's like, oh, the Separatists are coming. Oh, I should stop them. Ah, here we are. You know, like, he's like, oh, we're gonna attack Camino. I was like, no, you shouldn't attack Camino. He's doing that
Yeah.
the entire time. So I'm like, can't you see how smart this guy is?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
compared to who he is in like the, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, he's pretty intimidating, I guess. But like here, you can see how devious he is. You see him like pulling the strings with like different politicians
Yeah.
and the Jedi Order.
Yeah, and the fact that they don't sense, like, maybe this guy isn't who he says he is. Maybe he's something more. Says a lot about how arrogant and corrupt the Jedi Order is. And, like I from experience, like, when I say that with the older generation, they're like, how dare you, the Jedi Knights are supposed to be the guardians of the galaxy. Essentially, I'm like, well, they didn't do a good job, because they let Sidious corrupt them. Sorry.
Yeah. So again, yeah. Like, oh wait, what was their complaint? Like, there's not one villain.
Yeah, like Vader has been
Yeah.
the villain throughout 4, 5, and 6, and
Yeah.
then they're always like, oh yeah, but it's always Dooku, Maul, and then Anakin at the end. It's not like one villain.
But again, that's how you show like Palpatine's genius when it came to this entire plot.
Yeah,
That he had so many strings. He had Plan A, Plan Z, just to mess up the entire Jedi Order. I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
yeah. Anything else to add to this podcast before we eventually wrap up?
Nah, but I do like it. You know, like, if ever we're gonna go to like other
Yeah.
Star Wars as
Discussions. Yeah, and I said next year we'll do the sequels. A more expansive, maybe more, aggressive way of talking about it. Because we were like, right, the prequels this is about the prequels, right? But yeah, I think overall the prequels have aged tremendously well. Yeah, there's an over reliance on CGI, but again, like we've said in previous videos before, the CGI here always is better. Like I don't know what it is. Maybe some film historian, can explain it to me 50 years from now of why CGI in the 90s, well, some CGI in the 90s, and definitely in the early 2000s too, maybe early 2010s is so much better than in the 2020s. Like that will never make sense to me until someone sits me down of like, actually it happened like this. The studios were shitty to their own CGI artists, VFX artists. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Okay.
And they're always like putting them on crunch time. This is why the majority of the stuff don't look that great. Unless you're Godzilla -1, and then you just give the artist like, hey, take your time.
Yeah,
Do
unless
what you need to do.
you're in Japan or you're under the people of Across the Spider-Verse or
Yeah.
Planet of the Apes, where they're like, take your sweet time. We need the CGI to work.
Okay, hold on though. Like I do know a lot of studios in Japan who have like mistreated their animators. So I
Well-
guess we could just boil it down to this one studio first.
The Godzilla -1.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think overall people will look back with fondness on the prequels. I think maybe through time we'll see in like maybe 50 years if people look back on sequels the same way. Again, only time will tell. But for now, I think the fact that again Disney keeps fumbling the ball with Disney Star Wars until now, hopefully with not with the Acolyte, is why people look back with George Lucas in the prequels and they're like, yeah, it's not as bad, or it's better than people say it is. We get to appreciate it now more than ever, and that's my overall conclusion to this. But yeah, to the audience watching, what's your favorite part of the prequels, whether it be the Clone Wars or the original, the prequel trilogy itself? Please comment down below. If you like what you see here, please leave a like, subscribe, and ding the bell icon to get notified of when we upload next. We're also on Spotify and TikTok. TikTok to see our best and funniest moments. Spotify to hear us on the go. Individuum Zodas was us on TikTok and Answolf on Letterboxd. Where can they find you?
You can find me at JohnJM_ on Instagram, and this is my art account.
And until the next extended podcast or regular video, we'll see you guys there. Bye, everybody.
Out.